Even though like a lot of socialists and communists tend to adopt Marxism, which is a philosophical commitment, they tend to not speak very philosophically. So that would have been interesting, but I guess not. Let's try Diogenes Chicken. An interesting name there. What's up, guest? What part of the prompt do you want to talk about?
So I wanted to start with healthcare, housing, and food is a right. I know you guys just talked about definitions, but like it is so important to understand, like, for the context of that prompt, what would you define a right to be?
See, the problem with that is like it's not that relevant for the context of that prompt, because if you posit it's a right, you would then explain what you mean by right, and then if it's like relevant, maybe we can go back and forth. But typically,
if you
when
want
I'm
to
asked
provide one, I can.
Saying that
when I'm asked, what I usually refer to when I describe a right is a moral principle which defines and sanctions your freedom of action within a social context. But typically speaking, it seems like people want a more broad thing they commit to, which is like some sort of moral entitlement. It's kind of broad, kind of vague, and they make divisions between negative and positive rights. I don't know, but
then we can say that healthcare.
Yeah. Anyways, what's going on?
Okay. Or well, so in my mind, like a right as it seems to be enshrined within the American Constitution and under the framework that the founding fathers of our nation talked about rights, they seem to be actions that one can take, right? Like similar to a religious right, things that you can do of your own accord. Where the distinction between right and entitlements to me seems very, very important if you're going to have any kind of like philosophical understanding of the law. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You can hear me.
So, while I do think healthcare, housing, and food are good things that everyone should have, and I think it's only right and decent that people have them, I do not believe that they are rights.
Entirely correct opinion.
Yeah. So we're looking for somebody to prove that they are. Do you hold any of these positions that are on the thing?
I read the beginning of the prompt completely wrong. I thought it was prove me wrong, or like. I completely read your suppositions incorrectly. My apologies.
Bro, I've told him to change how he words it because it's
not my fault, bro. But I appreciate it, man. We'll see ya.
This guy's a beast. Have
a good night.
Chat, can we get a counter? That's the first one so far on this live, but he counts. No, that's the majority of those people tend to agree. They'll come up here and be like, "Oh, my fault. I agree." Like he doesn't get a pass. What's up, guest? What part of the prompt do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about the first one.
Okay. What's the argument?
So, whenever you say that it's good, like, kind of, what are you asking for there whenever you're asking about it being good?
That's the second one, but you're asking for what I usually take a prudential account of the good. But if you, I don't know, maybe if you take some sort of supererogatory one, you can forward that as well, and we can get into that.
Okay, so
or some other form of good, I don't know.
For the first one, and by prudential, are you looking at like an overall account of like personhood?
Am I looking for one, you said?
Yeah, whenever you're talking about prudential.
I'm not looking for an account of personhood.
Well, no, like it's a part of it, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. Okay. So whenever you're talking about healthcare and all of that stuff and it being a right, I just take rights to be something that's like enforced or like distributed by the government, and I would take good to either mean, something indexed to character or something indexed. In this context, it's probably going to be something that's aggregative. So we can just say that good is going to be what's beneficial to the most amount of people. So I would say that if healthcare and housing is good for the most amount of people, then it's, if it's beneficial for the most amount of people, then it would be good. It is beneficial for the most amount of people, therefore it would be good.
Why would would I accept this like utilitarian premise?
You would accept a sort of, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be utilitarian. It could also be, I could also index it to character, but the reason why you would want to index it specifically, or like a motivating reason why you would want to index to utilitarianism, is because I don't really know how you could cash out a sort of I don't really know how you could hash out like character traits when it comes to things that are enforced by the government, when it comes to sort of, policy and things like that. I mean, I guess you could, but I think that whenever we're trying to be consistent and we're trying to, use a model that's correct, or a model that's going to be intuitive to most amount of people, I'd say that most people would converge on something that's more aggregative, or something that's more utilitarian.
Yeah, I don't see why one should be motivated to adopt a belief if, like, just most people tend to agree on that. I'm not.
Well, that would actually be a motivating reason. Do you reject that as a motivating reason? Like, if most people would agree, would find that belief intuitive, that you'd have a reason, at the bare minimum, you'd have a reason to consider the belief, or to update your priors?
Absent holding any particular relevant priors of my own, maybe, but
when you say absence of relevant priors of your own?
Yeah, I suppose if I was just like agnostic, maybe so, though.
So if you were suspending judgment before?
Yeah, well, suspending judgment and then, putting myself in a situation where I'm asking for a reason to be motivated. Yeah.
Okay, and so before this, were you suspending judgment whether or not it was a right, or were you affirming that it's not a right?
I wasn't positing my own position, so you could treat me like I'm being agnostic on the situation. I don't know.
Okay.
For the sake of the conversation, you can know my position if you want. Yeah, I do hold that it's not a right, or those things aren't rights. I mean.
Okay, but I'll just go ahead and stick to what I was talking about. So essentially, I think that, if it's beneficial to the most amount of people, I think we ought to adopt some sort of policy, or some sort of law, or some sort of model of social contract.
Are you like a moral intuitionist?
And by moral intuitionist, do you mean that moral intuitions are truth apps, or do you just mean that we ought to adopt like moral intuitions as like reasons, or as reason giving?
I suppose either one. Do you take either of those positions?
I would take the last one. I don't know about them being truth apps, because I think that intuitions specifically are unjustified doxastic states. I don't think that they're I don't think that an intuition can be true or false in and of itself. I think that once it becomes true or false, that's when it becomes an actual proposition. So I would take the latter. Yeah. I think that they're reason giving, that if enough people have an intuition towards something, then it's reason giving towards that thing being true.
Okay. I wish my intuitionist friend here was here to talk about this part. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that that's supposed to be particularly moving. That a certain amount of people converge on a particular moral idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What would be moving? What would you consider like relevant, and specifically in the context of like a social or political model? What would you consider to be reason giving to like update your beliefs towards that model, or towards that sort of particular viewpoint of the world or concept of the world? What do you think would be reason giving for that, or would be motivating for you to change your mind?
I suppose I, as an egoist, would probably need
okay,
the egoist position on government, and I guess just morality probably debunked, and then I guess after that it's kind of open game, right? Like whatever is, whatever's true, whatever's true is true.
Yeah, we can adopt ego. So more specifically, you would say rational egoism or ethical egoism?
Yeah,
rational egoism.
I take the two to be the same, but I'm an objectivist if that's what you're asking.
So I kind of feel like, I don't know, I feel like it just depends on the sort of concept of whether or not someone sees them as different. I would also agree that they're kind of the same. So you'd say that, so just to be clear, whenever we're talking about egoism, just to make sure that we're not equivocating or, moving our semantics differently. Whenever we're talking about egoism, we're just saying that you ought to act in a way that ultimately fulfills your desires or ultimately fulfills your interests. So not necessarily doing things that people imagine as bad, but doing things that are good or things that are ultimately in reference to your self-interest, such as like being kind, or such as like helping an old lady cross the street or something like that, right?
I take it that egoism is the moral position that your life is your standard of value by which you evaluate things as good and bad, and that is derived from the idea that like that which is conducive towards your flourishing and the promotion of your life and promotion of your life is what is good, and that which does the opposite is the bad.
Right. And so
it's agent relative, just to be clear. That's how I don't end up in like a utilitarian position of, let's maximize everybody's flourishing.
Yeah. And so what do you think about whenever it comes to maximizing other people's flourishing, or not in a sense maximizing, but at least we can just say valuing other people's flourishing in some way, shape, or form as being a part of your own flourishing? Do you think that that would be relevant to your interests, living in a sort of country where you want that country to adopt principles and policies that would ultimately benefit maybe your empathy or maybe your sort of curiosity about the world, or other feelings that you might have or other dispositions that you might have towards other people, and that the government should adopt policies to fulfill that? Or like, what do you think? What do you think that you should do?
I mean,
in this sense?
I think the well-being and flourishing of other people is relevant to me, but only insofar as it actually is relevant to me. Like, if there's like some homeless guy on the street right now that can't pay bills, can't afford food, I don't know that like donating a certain amount of money would be in my interest, and I'm certainly opposed to like taxation for giving him more money. So in that sense, like it wouldn't be relevant to me. But there are people whose flourishing might be more relevant to my life for different reasons.
Right, such as like people who are in higher power than you, or people who have more control over your life, right?
Depends what you mean by that. I mean, like...
I can talk in reference to, like, whenever I say more power, I don't necessarily mean that they control you in some sort of, like, political way. I mean, as in they control you in the sense that you value that person, like a family member or like a friend or somebody, where you value their well-being. And so in a sense that they have control over your sort of interests.
That would be a fine example. Like, I definitely want to make sure my siblings or my girlfriend or something are doing or they're in a position to be flourishing, but obviously that only goes so far, right?
Okay, so let's look at, so whenever you're talking about socialism being good, or socialism/communism being good, and then you have your third prompt as capitalism is bad, and so you want to prove both. I'm assuming that means that you would affirm that capitalism is good while socialism is bad?
Yeah, I would.
So whenever we're talking about these sort of like models being good, you're indexing them to you're indexing them to ultimate self-interest, or things that are going to benefit the self. So for socialism or for communism, whenever you're talking about the value of the people around you and the value of your community, do you think that community is beneficial to you and your self-interest?
Yeah, I mean, like, in certain ways, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so whenever you're trying to uplift that community, do you think that socialism or communism is a good structure for how you can uplift the community around you and bring focus to the community around you? Or do you think it's that in of itself is an issue? Do you think that it does that, or do you think it doesn't do that?
I don't think it does that for at least two reasons. Like, in the moral sense, because it has to infringe on my rights in order to redistribute resources. But in the second, there's like plenty of just like empirical proof, which Ben was here, he could have talked about the economics of it. That's not exactly my forte, but yeah, I think there's like a lot of empirical evidence that demonstrates typically that communism and socialism are not as efficient as like what people at least typically label as capitalism. Maybe I don't define capitalism that way, but it has enough relevant elements. So comparatively, it seems that, socialism and communism don't tend to distribute resources in a very economically advantageous way.
Yeah, so whenever we're trying to maximize things in our own self-interest, ultimately, do you think that this viewpoint that you have could have been breeded by capitalism, which would be a self-sustaining viewpoint or something that was sociologically determined? And maybe it's possible that this viewpoint could be detrimental to your self-interest and ultimately entail like a contradiction?
No. I take myself to be, I take humans to be creatures of volition, and I would say that, like, I, of my own volition, decided to investigate a little bit of philosophy and ended up at this position.
Well, you could still be of your own volition, but while still being, like, at the helm of the circumstances that define you, right? Like, you could still, like, a lot of people are very intelligent, but still ultimately are, a lot of people get into philosophy, but still hold a lot of the same views that they have, like, as kids. Like, a lot of people who are religious as kids become extremely smart philosophers and, write dense papers, but they're still ultimately religious as adults. Well, a lot of people who are atheists grow up as atheists, and then they, get into philosophy, and they still remain as philosophy or as atheists as adults. So it's not necessarily the case that rational, like, reflection or reasoning can free you from the determination of your circumstances. It's just that it's more likely to free you, but it's not necessarily that it does. So I'm just wondering, what do you think would be the justification for you saying that you're not of the circumstances that you're arguing for, in the sense that you're not biased towards the things that have shaped your life? Like, what would be your justification for that?
Oh, I worry that the way you're using the words like shaped and determination might be a little too weighty, for lack of better words. Like, I don't know that, like,
something.
Potentially, I don't know that, like, my circumstances, allow. Let me see. How do I word this? That my circumstances may afforded, like, particular opportunities and less opportunities in some other regards. I don't know that would determine my beliefs per se. That's, like, I do understand that, like, we can subconsciously absorb beliefs and not examine them and whatnot, but even that to some degree would be an act of volition, because you haven't examined your beliefs, and that is a choice to do so, right? So when you use, like, the word determine, I don't know that I agree with that framing.
Yeah. So let's just get into the sort of final thing, and I won't hold up your live for too long. So
You're good, man.
We can get into the final question that I'll ask, and it'll be whenever we're sort of comparing these hypotheses that we have, where someone like me might take up a more, something more aggregative, while someone like you might take up something more prudential, where we're talking about character versus the maximization of like pleasure or something. How do you think that we ought to go about comparing these two as correct? Like, how do you think that we would cash out which one of these is correct, or which one of these we ought to fight for? Whereas one of us is fighting for self-interest, the other one's fighting for collective interests. How do you come to a standard to agree on which one you think is better?
It seems like it would have to be over some sort of debate regarding the meta ethics of these two positions, and which one actually satisfies a couple things. Which, to my understanding, if you want to, like, prove a meta ethical position, seems like you want to at least address, like, the problem of moral authority and the problem of action at minimum. There might be some other ones maybe, but you'd probably want to investigate there first and see who's actually satisfies these particular things. But I don't know, maybe some other people have different views on. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, when you say, like, a moral authority, are you using authority as in like the type of viewpoint that's grounding the meta-ethical talk, as in like naturalism versus theism?
In the sense that like, well, yeah, that too, but also like, where do prescriptions come from? Like, what is the justification for prescriptions in that view?
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, just wanted to.
What was the thing? Really quick, I'm sorry. What was the position you mentioned about character? I want to make sure I heard that right, or at least remember it.
At the beginning of the debate?
I think you mentioned it again a second ago. You said something about character.
I said something about character. I don't recall.
I think when you gave two positions, when you said like egoism or whatever the other one was, I didn't quite catch that.
I mean, the other character position I can think of is like virtue ethics. If you're talking about like certain positions, there's like utilitarianism.
I thought you said something with the word character in there as like some sort of like normative view, and I was like, wait, what? I didn't.
The only ones I can think of is the only ones I can think of is like egoism, virtue ethics, and then you have utilitarianism, deontology. I mean, I think I might have mentioned that might have just gotten in this mumbo jumbo. I might have mentioned like deontic, like contractualism, or like the social contract. But that was more so like because we were talking about politics.
I swear I thought I heard the word character in like, I guess, the name of a normative system. I don't know. Maybe I'm messing. Before I let you go, curiously, I hear you playing games in the back, bro. What are you playing?
I'm playing Minecraft.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sounds good. Well, hey, I'm gonna shoot you a follow here. This was a good conversation. If you want to chat sometime, we can. You should talk about intuitionism with one of my friends here who actually just interviewed Michael Humer the other day. He's really into the moral realist stuff. Now, I don't know if you're properly speaking a moral realist or something, but maybe you could have a good conversation with him. Are you actually a socialist or a communist?
I would say that right now, like I am, the attitude I adopt right now is suspension, because I'm gonna be honest, like I'm not super familiar with like political systems such as like capitalism and communism and stuff. I mostly am getting into that just now, whereas before, like I was really into like field debates for the most part. But and so I was just relying mostly on like, normativity on how we would define these things. But whenever it comes to them themselves, actually, I'm not sure which one I would go for. I would probably lean towards capitalism because I'm also an egoist. But that's just, I don't know. I'd have to do more research before I could actually like affirm a position and say that position's like true.
When you say egoist, like, are you using it in the same sense I am, or?
I would use it in the same sense that you are. I think it's in your self-interest to act in a certain way throughout the world. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's not too often we find other egoists on here. Okay, appreciate your time, man. That was a good conversation.
All right, no problem, man. Bye.
See ya.